Now this is a very special episode. There's not one, not two, but three significant events surrounding this. First, the most meta of them, this episode marks the halfway point of the Year of FDS project. For that, I'll be posting a short video alongside this one with my thoughts about the project so far. 50% of the Famicom Disk System is behind us. And that brings me to point 2. The release of Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School marks the beginning of the 1987 holiday season for the Famicom Disk System. Much like in the US, a lot of game sales were concentrated in those last few weeks of the year, though the holidays are slightly different between the two. And as a result, game publishers pushed to have their big releases for the year on store shelves in those last 6 weeks. Over with the cartridges, roughly 25% of all Famicom games released in a given year would come out in that holiday season. And the Disk System's 1987 holiday season consisted of, 7 releases. And that's because I can't rightfully call at least one of them a game. Konami and Nintendo are at least making an effort here. Data East is trying to lean into the holiday season, and Bandai is inadvertently starting a tradition. But it's hard to read this release calendar as anything other than the Famicom Disk System collapsing entirely. The 1986 holiday season for the FDS had 12 games, and that was over 1/3 of the releases for 1986. The 1987 holiday season is screaming that everyone has pulled out from the Disk System. The platform hasn't reached its second birthday, and publishers are fleeing it in droves. The FDS is a dead system walking. From this point on, it's almost entirely sustained by Nintendo desperately attempting to make it work. And it's showcasing how the Japanese video game industry had changed. All of the third parties fled back to the Famicom, which was at the height of its power, while Nintendo was putting all of their efforts into floppies and watching those struggle. It'll be 1989 before Nintendo really starts shifting back to Famicom cartridges again. And all of that is going to make this next and final significant point really sound odd, because there's a very good case that Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School is the most important Famicom Disk System game. The only competition it has for that title are Zelda no Densetsu and Metroid's influence will take a few years to kick in. The reason for this is Tokimeki High School inspires a genre that becomes enormous. And that's because this is the first game that one might consider a dating sim. Now I think this is stretching the definition a lot. Nintendo themselves referred to Tokimeki High School as a love simulation. But the game itself is a command adventure game, similar to other 8-bit adventure games where you pick an option from a menu and go from there. It's just that the plot of this game, instead of revolving around a murder mystery, or some science fiction setting, or fairy tales, is all about your protagonist meeting a girl and hopefully falling in love. At a few points throughout the game, you'll have deep conversations with her, where you'll have to pick one of multiple responses. And sometimes after you pick one of these responses, you'll also have to choose what emotion you want to express that with. While there are multiple points throughout the game where you can say or do something wrong and get an instant game over, the real plot choice occurs at the very end of the game, where what you pick in the final conversation determines which ending you receive. I got the bad ending because I wasn't going to give away the good ending in this video. What this comes down to is Tokimeki High School is the first console adventure game about romance. Well, let's jump ahead 7 years to the game that really kicked dating sims into high gear, Tokimeki Memorial. Boy, that title sounds familiar, doesn't it? Tokimeki Memorial has you step into the shoes of a high school student trying to find love before he graduates. While there are segments where you have to choose from multiple options, and it will affect how much someone likes you, the real focus is on engaging in a routine where you'll increase your character's stats. And once they're sufficiently high enough, you have the opportunity to romance a whole set of women. In short, you need to pick a target for romance, build yourself up in a way that you think they'll appreciate, and then get them to like you enough that they'll be your true love at the end of high school. And to me, those are the real elements of dating sims as a genre. Players need to be able to choose which partner they're going to pursue, and it needs to reduce attraction to a mechanical problem rather than a narrative one. So I would not call Tokimeki High School the first dating sim, though it's not uncommon for people to say it is. Now at this point, over 5 minutes into the episode, you might have noticed that the full title of the game is Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School. So who is Nakayama Miho, other than the woman who's on the cover? Well, she was a popular singer and actress at the time. And although she was an idol, she wasn't a flash in the pan either. Nakayama has had an absolutely enormous career, and in fact, at the time of this recording, she is touring right now. Though if you listen to this on the day I release it, sorry, the last concert was a week ago. In the game, she's actually the target of your affections. You bump into a girl at school, fall in love with her, notice that she looks an awful lot like Nakayama Miho, and then discover that she's been leading a, I guess, Hannah Montana-esque double life. The big hook for this game was that you could talk to Nakayama Miho, and not in the game. This was another one of Nintendo's Disk Fax games, where you could save your progress to the disk, then take the floppy into a store which had a disk kiosk, and it would fax your status back to Nintendo. Unlike the other ones, there really wasn't a competition associated with this. Instead, if you finished the game, then you were entered into a drawing to win either a phone card or an autographed VHS tape. Sometimes throughout the game, you'd be given phone numbers. Then you, as the player, would call that number, and Nakayama would answer. Well, a recording of Nakayama would answer. And this would be the point in the video where I'd play one of those recordings for you, except as far as I can tell, no one ever recorded their phone call. Or at least if they did, they haven't shared it. So we don't know exactly what was said on those phone calls, but apparently it was tips to help you know what kind of guy she likes. Things that would guide you through your responses when you interacted with her in the game. The phone numbers are only in the first release of this game. Nintendo shut off the phone service about 6 months after the original release. So in later revisions, the phone numbers are replaced with text screens. If there's any problem with Tokimeki High School, it's that the game is absurdly short. Like, so short that even if you weren't following a walkthrough like I was, you would probably finish it in one play session. At least assuming your parents let you use the phone. You have those emotion choices sometimes when you pick out dialogue responses, but in almost every single case, the appropriate emotion is the default neutral expression, so it really doesn't feel natural in the game. And as I mentioned, the only choices that really matter are the very last ones. Now in Japan, Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School is a beloved classic. It remains one of the most popular 8-bit adventure games. But that's among game fans. Internal to Nintendo, they really did not like it. It was a project that was brought to Nintendo by Square because Square couldn't afford to develop the game. And the game was restricted to a single disc, which meant that those developers had to cut a lot of their plans. Because they were so dissatisfied with the results, Nintendo decided to expand the next adventure games they made, and the result was Famicom Detective Club. And meanwhile, another developer in Nintendo got some inspiration from the meta aspects of Tokimeki High School, and pitched a new style of RPG drawing inspiration from those. That game would percolate for a little while, and eventually be released as Mother. So without Nakayama Miho, we probably wouldn't have Earthbound. Due to how this game originated at Square, this is the only Nintendo-published game until the Super Smash Bros. Series to feature music by Square's master composer Uematsu Nobuo. Of course, his breakout music doesn't come around until 2 weeks later, when Final Fantasy is released. My own feeling here is, it's interesting. I wouldn't call it a top-tier adventure game, but it's really unlike any other adventure game that got released on an 8-bit Nintendo platform. And while I might not call it a dating sim, you can draw a direct line from it to the games that became dating sims. At the very least, Nakayama Miho no Tokimeki High School is historically significant, and that alone makes it worth checking out.